Okay, and if the editor believes that your article have the merit and suitable for publications, they will invite for reviewers. So at least normally every journal need to secure at least 2 reviewers, but normally it's more. It's up to 5 and 6 reviewers. And after that, if you pass this peer review process, then the editor is going to decide rejections, major revisions, or minor revisions. And the decision is based on editorial, based on the editor assessment, as well as the reviewers' comments. However, what we're going to discuss today is desk rejection. However, for me, desk rejection is not really a bad news. It's quite a good news because you may proceed to the next step, maybe submitting your article somewhere else. But if you see your paper went for peer review or under review, so this is a good thing, meaning that you had passed the initial assessment. However, it does not guarantee that your manuscript will be accepted. So it will be a very long time, perhaps up to 1 year for everything to be assessment, meaning that you have the first review, then after that we have the second cycle of review. After that, the editor might also address some issue that you also needs to amend, meaning that you have to amend amendments on your manuscript based on the reviewers' comments and editor comments, and it might take a year or more. Normally, if you are lucky, if it's lucky 8 months or 7 months, is good enough. Okay, what the reason for the desk rejection? So what you're going to discuss today is what's the reason for the desk rejection. First is plagiarism. So plagiarism is the very big no. So no paper that have any kind of plagiarism going to be what I call it. Sorry, I have to mute one of our friends here. Okay, so plagiarism is one of the big issues. So how the editor detect plagiarism? We have the software. So the software is going to send us reports. Either it's okay to process or not okay to process. So normally I'm going to open the reports. I'm going to see either there is any kind of duplication, or what I call it as salami. So do you know what is salami? Salami meaning that this is one of the misconduct in research, meaning that you have a very big study, for example, your PhD, then you slice it into several pieces. Maybe, for example, you publish first and second objective, later you publish your third objective, then you publish your final objective. So this is what we call it as salami slicing. And I would like to emphasize that salami slicing is one of academic misconduct. So we do not accept any salami slicing. So this is the common practice of original. Salami slicing is not something accepted. Then the most common one is scope. Might be your scope is not really suitable with the journals, or maybe it's not really aligned. It might be related, but it's not really aligned with the journal. So this is the common reason. So we're going to go to a very specific, based on my experience, why we reject the article. First, the most important thing is that novelty. So when I receive an article, I'm going to look at novelty. Do you have anything to contribute to the current body of knowledge? If there's no new insight, no theoretical or conceptual contributions, it will be rejected. So bear in mind, you have to understand, you have to look, either you have to read your article and you have to understand your research. Either do you have anything new to contribute to the body of knowledge. The example is that no clear research. Sorry, I have my mouse is quite moving around because I have several pop-up from the WebEx. For example, no clear research or knowledge gap have been addressed. So when we read the article, we don't find any statement about research gap. And in some cases, the authors seem not to be aware what is actually the research gap or knowledge gap in the research discipline. Okay, normally for us, for the editor, we are very well versed about what are currently the research gaps in the field, in the research discipline. Sometimes the author claims this is the research gap they're going to address. However, this is not really a research gap or something that has been solved previously. Another common reason for why your research don't seem to have novelty, you are using outdated or almost reaching end of the life cycle theory. So some theory might be already outdated, they are no longer popular, so they don't receive any highlight or center stage in academic world anymore. So it's most likely not going to be accepted or considered for any publication in high impact journal. Then another issue that the theory being used, you are using the correct theory. The theory is correct, it's a current theory, something very popular, being the center stage of academic research. However, the theory being used is not in its current full-fledged form. So the theory might evolve. At the starting point, they have maybe several variables. Now they have more variables, some additional variables that might be suggested by the pioneer of the theory, but the author might miss the latest development in the field. So meaning that they are using the correct theory, but the theory is not at its current full-fledged form. Another thing is that outdated technology that nearing the end of life cycle or a plateau technology, meaning that a technology that's quite plateau, everybody is going to use it, everybody use it pretty much everywhere, every day. However, what's next? We don't see anything how the technology might evolve next. So that is among reason why the article been rejected. Replication of existing study and finding do not offer anything new that might expand scholarly knowledge about the area of study. Maybe someone did it in Europe or someone did it in the United States. Then you're going to replicate in, for example, in Malaysia. So this is not really something new. So this is a replication of existing study. So not novel enough for consideration or what call it publication in high impact journal. Okay, then cross-cultural. Some authors suggest that the cross-cultural comparison, but the cross-cultural comparisons does not always seem catchy in top journal. In top journal, we don't really think that when you make what I call it a cross-cultural comparison as something that's really catchy, because unless it is something that's really unknown, for maybe somewhere in the world this has been no research about it, something that's really totally unknown about that, then maybe you can suggest for cross-cultural comparisons. But normally it's not really what I call it catchy. And even SLR, systematic literature review, even systematic literature review receive frequent rejections. First, sometimes most of it, the SLR being performed without a meticulous and robust or rigorous approach or rigorous sampling, how you select your articles, the quality of the article, how it been assessed, is not being recorded. So this is among the reasons. Another one is that for fast-paced technologies, so for example, maybe about AI. So AI is quite really fast-paced technologies. what maybe you conduct an SLR today, it might become outdated in less than 5 years. So for SLR, it needs to be something that is really what I call it, relevant for more than 5 years. Why 5 years is important? Because this is normally the period where the article is going to receive the most of its citation. Okay, another thing is just not citable. So the article focusing to a very specific area without any clear application somewhere else. So not really sure either the article going to receive any citation, and not popular theory or technology. So maybe this is a new technology or a new theory. However, maybe the theory already in the field for around 5 years, but it's not really popular among the academician, among researchers. So this might be a reason why this theory or technology is not really popular, and that is will lead towards the situation where the article will not receive a significant or sustainable number of citations. Another thing is that writing, the abstract is not well written. Normally what happens that just send a very brief abstract or something abstract that quite too long, no sampling techniques, no number of samples, what is the statistical analysis, what are the theory did implemented, and what is the implication of the study. So for some editor, they're going to reach from the title to abstract. Once the abstract is not well written, so maybe they're going to believe that they're going to convince that this article is not really suitable for publication. So what's the important thing that I'm going to look when I receive my article? I'm going to look at the titles. So either it's a very current title, something that's really impactful, novel. Looking at the abstracts, what are the issue, any hypothesis, any research question. Then I'm going to go toward the methodology, how the sample, what is the sampling techniques, is the sample is sufficient, and finally I'm going to look towards the statistical analysis and how mature is the discussion. So this is how the practice that I'm going to commonly use to make a screening about the quality of the manuscript. Another issue that the article have literature review, and not its literature review, however, it seems disconnected and not contributing to the whole article. You have literature review, however, how the literature review going to support or going to reinforce your study, any parameter, any dimension in your study is not clear. So the literature review, meaning that this can be what I call it, the editor might have the perspective that the authors not really read the whole researchers about the research discipline. Then you have the hypothesis. Some articles have hypotheses, mostly quantitative research. The hypotheses were not formulated accordingly. Hypotheses were not in line with the literature and without any apparent reasons or justification. So for editors, they normally very well versed with the theories, so they're going to understand what are the theories and basically how the hypothesis been written around these theories. And some article, they try to innovate, making like kind of a new hypothesis, a new relationship, however, no apparent reasons, or it might be due to they have issue with their model fix and everything. That's why they adjust the relationship. So this is not something I call it in line with the mainstreams of literature. And another thing is no apparent underpinning premise and representation of the finding. So you have the finding, however, the finding be presented very weak. Normally for the editors, we love for you to have figures or tables to ease the understanding of the audience and to show the technicalities parts of your study. So it's a good idea to have a lot of figures, but not too much. You have figures and illustration to illustrate your finding, especially your finding and your theoretical framework. Another reason why you receive the suggestion is the methodology flaw or issue. Construct and measure are not aligned. The sampling technique is not convincing. For example, the sampling technique might be not something replicable or not something that is commonly being practiced. It's best to use probabilistic sampling technique, random samplings, or using cluster random samplings. Purposive sampling is accepted in some cases. So if you would use a very very specific or very unique sampling techniques, meaning that the sample will not be able to be done again in the future, which does not allow for any future replication. So it might be the reason why that can be rejected. Insufficient sample size. So you have to show that your sample size is sufficient based on KG and Morgan's or any other reference. So what are the statistical strength of your sample size? What is the error of measure? What are the confidence intervals that have to be well written in your study? Insufficient treatment or interventions durations that might be maybe just a few weeks of treatment for what I call it for an experimental study. So this is not really convincing. The measure is not based on proven instrument. You have the instruments, you have the theory. However, this is not based on the very proven instruments. Maybe you adopt it from someone else. Maybe why? Because the person might change his or her instrument based on the needs of his or her study. Perhaps her sample might be university students and your sample might be secondary school students. So different samples, they might have different perceptions. And this is among the things how valid, how proven is your instruments. Misalignment between research objective and research question with the method being used. For statistical analysis, you are not using high-tier statistical analysis. So for high impact journal, it's need to be high-tier statistical analysis. For example, they're using ARIMA, you're using partial least square structural equation model, you're using covariant-based structural equation models. This is among the top tier statistical analysis. The data set is not convincing. We are not very convinced on how the data being collected, how valid is the data set. An article does not elaborate the decision on using specific statistical package. So each software has different algorithms and analytical approaches. So if you're using a different software, they might be used a different algorithm, another different software, a different algorithm. It's okay for you to use a new unpopular software. However, you have to understand the algorithm behind it. In some cases, the author not really clear what is different between the two software. Another thing is that low R squared value and weak model strength. Even in some cases, the author does not really want to report their R square and what are their model fixed indices. So this is something what we really concerned. We really need to know what is your R square value and what's the strength or the fits of your model that you have proposed and you have tested. Okay, I think that's all from me. Lots of things why your article being rejected, but what you have to remember is that first, novelty, second, the statistical analysis, and then the writing. That's among the top thing why you have the top thing reason, the top reason why your article being rejected. So I had elaborated everything about it. Any question from the audience? Okay, good. No question. Okay. I think someone raised his hand. Any question?
Yeah, Prof, I have a question
Yes,
regarding
please.
to yeah. Good afternoon. So I have a questions regarding to the paper rejections. If I would like to hear from your suggestions. If let's say our paper is being rejected from one of the journals, so so what is your suggestions? We need to do the correction